So thank you very much for giving me the chance to speak to you. I'm just going to talk about three things really: why 20 miles an hour is important, what's going on elsewhere, and a bit about what's happening in East Sussex. First, I just wanted to say what 2020 is. We're a community-based organisation. We support 700 communities up and down the country who want 20 miles an hour in their place. You might be interested to know there are 28 million people now. 28 million, so getting on for half of the UK, people living in the UK, who live in places where 20 miles an hour is now accepted as the norm, and 30 miles an hour is seen as the exception. My name is Adrin Berendt, and I run the campaigns for the south of England. So if any of you would like to get a campaign going in your area, please talk to me. So why is 20 miles an hour important? There are four things really. There's millions of things, but there's four things which are really important. It's safer. It just reduces risk. If you reduce your speed by 1 mile an hour on average, you will suffer 6% fewer collisions. That's in an urban area, and that's well documented. And in Edinburgh, where they introduced 20 miles an hour citywide, Scarlett earlier said they reduced casualties by 40%. I've got 33%, but it's order that magnitude, 30 to 40% fewer collisions when you implement 20 miles an hour, and that's so that it's safer, it's less risk. It's actually really popular. If you walk down any street, you will find that 2 in 3 people support 20 miles an hour, and councillors often underestimate this. It's whatever survey you do, it's always 2 to 3 or 3 and 4 people support 20 miles an hour. It's really popular. If you want to get re-elected, support 20 miles an hour. There are fewer emissions. People will argue, yeah, but I can't drive in 20 miles an hour because I've got to drive in a lower gear. Rubbish. It's complete and utter nonsense. What uses the fuel is when you put your foot on the accelerator, and then you put your foot on the brake, and then you put your foot on the accelerator again. Even in electric vehicles, this chart's from Tesla, and what it shows is that the range that you can expect at different speeds, and you'll notice that the faster you go, the less range you get. So if you're worried about charging your vehicles, just drive a bit slower. And by the way, 20 miles an hour is much quieter. I notice on my street, if I can tell when people are going faster and when they're going slower. So there's much more noise pollution at 30 than at 20. Probably most importantly for this audience is active travel. There's evidence of itself that 20 miles an hour increases active travel. But actually, I look at it the other way around. If you want to increase active travel, you cannot do it without 20 miles an hour, because people will not walk and cycle where there's high road speeds. Yes, of course, cycling infrastructure, absolutely, but it's expensive and it can be politically difficult. Yes, of course, introduce low traffic neighbourhoods with modal filters and so on, absolutely. It's politically can be tricky, but 20 miles an hour, it's popular as we've heard, and it's cheap. It's cheap as chips. And why is it important? Because 85% of pedestrian casualties are on 30 mile an hour roads. Why is, of course, because they're all the pedestrian casualties are mostly in urban areas. So let's get those 30 mile an hour roads down to 20, and we'll see many, many fewer casualties. What's going on elsewhere? Very quickly. Well, were you in John O'Groats? Highland Council is introducing 20 miles an hour as its pilot for the whole of Scotland. We believe that the whole of Scotland is going to go 20 miles an hour very shortly. Or down to Land's End, where the Conservative Council had it in their manifesto to introduce 20 miles an hour, and they're doing it in all the communities. They've allocated 3.8 million. 3.8 million is nothing. Think of a roundabout costing 20, 30, 40 million quid for the whole of Cornwall, for all the people, similar population to East Sussex. They're putting 20 miles an hour in all their communities because all the communities asked for it. That's what's happened. The communities in East Sussex are asking for it as well, but East Sussex is not delivering it. Any county around here, if you're looking at Kent, or if you're looking at local authority in Brighton and Hove, or Portsmouth, or Southampton, or Surrey, or West Sussex, there's a bit of a hole here, isn't there? I'm talking to Gloucestershire next week. They want to introduce it as well. I love this slide. This is fantastic. The person on the left is Rod King, who founded 2020. The person on the right is Andrew R.T. Davis, who is leader of the Welsh Conservatives. Now, I'm not making a party political point, but he's changed his mind. And he's changed it for purely political reasons. The Conservative Party supported 20 miles an hour in Wales when it was first proposed. It was a cross-party thing. It's introduced by all political parties. Wherever you go, it's different political parties introducing this stuff. And this drop in speeds is extraordinary. 3 miles an hour doesn't sound a lot, but if the previous speed was 23, which it was, on average on these roads, it's now down to 20. You multiply that up by the number of collisions it's going to save, that's going to be a 20 or 30% reduction in casualties in Wales from this very simple measure. I'm not going to, I'll go through this. I'm very happy to talk about this slide. The other really, really important point, what this slide is showing you is that not just that the mean speeds are reducing, but they're reducing much, much more on the faster roads. So if you want to introduce 20 miles an hour, you've got to do it wide area, because that's where you'll see the benefits. And you see a tighter distribution of speeds as well. So that there are fewer people going the really extreme speeds. People use speed limits as a reference point, and they might speed at 30, speeding at 35, 36. When they speed at 20, they're speeding at 26, 27, which is why you see huge benefits. I was going to talk about Burwash, but I have to say I'm absolutely aghast, because Burwash, who have been campaigning for 7.5 years to get 20 miles an hour for their community, for these reasons, they've given up. They've given up because East Sussex have put so many hurdles in their way. It's absolutely outrageous. And the really outrageous thing is that since they started asking, there have been 29 collisions in Burwash Common and Etchingham. How many of those collisions would have been saved if East Sussex had answered the community requests for 20 miles an hour? And this is why the number of casualties on East Sussex roads, on 30-mile-an-hour roads, is going up. There's no progress in 20 years. There's still the same number of killed and seriously injured on Sussex roads as there were 20 miles an hour, as there were 20 years ago, because 20 miles an hour has not been introduced. Lastly, I'm just going to do one last thing. People often talk about having 20 miles an hour around schools. There are reasons for this. I thought we'd just draw an 800-metre radius around each school in Eastbourne, just to see what would happen if we introduced 20 miles an hour for the school, for the average journey to school for each child. There's one up there, there's one up there, there's one there. Oh. Well, there we are then. In Eastbourne, just do it wide area across the whole of the town, and then decide which of your streets are safe for vulnerable road users to still be at 20. Thank you very much.
We're just going to change the order a little bit. Rupert.